Masks work in the opposite way of selections, in the sense they cover up the unselected parts of the image, and so that they're protecting it from elements that you don't want to change. And a quick mask is a way to work on a temporary selection and really refine it, really craft that selection. And an alpha channel is a way to save that selection so that you can load it and work with it at a later date. So let's explore these tools. Well, I have a basic selection around here, but I want to do some fine-tuning of it. And in this scenario, I'm going to use the quick mask to do that. Now, one way to access the quick mask is using the command right here, and it looks a little bit like a camera. You can also press the letter Q, and you can jump in and out of the quick mask. I'm going to go and click on that. And now I can see that I'm in the quick mask mode because it says up here on the title, quick mask, and I get this overlay, a ruby red monolith here. And that ruby red is the traditional color, because a lot of times when we were making masks, we would cut them out. But what I'd like to do is actually change the color. So I'm going to double click on the tool. And I found that it will depend on the image you're using, but almost always for me, having a bright neon green color really helps. Now, this one may not be as helpful because we've got a lot of that part color, but let's just try that out, the bright neon green color. And you can also change the opacity. So if you wanted something that's a little bit lighter, you could dump that down. Let's try something like 30%. And notice that it's going to be showing me the mask areas as opposed to the selected areas, and you can choose that as well. I'm going to go back into my quick mask, and now I can see that green area. And so just depending on what works best for you, you can always change that. But keep in mind that when you double click on that tool, you have to sometimes go back to the quick mask area. Now, the way the quick mask works is when you're in that tool, you're actually making selections, but you're using the brush to do that. And notice that the colors are black and white, and so you're using the brush to make those selections. And let's go ahead and just get ourselves kind of a nice big brush, and I'm painting in black, and as I make a big swoosh, I'm noticing that black is actually going to be adding to the mask. So it's going to be deselecting. Let's go ahead and use undo to remove that. And if I switch my colors here to white, and I go ahead and make a swoosh, I'm adding to the mask. So it's interesting that I'm not really painting. I'm actually using the white to remove. I should say the white is removing from the mask, so it's adding to the selection itself. Now I can continue to go back and forth. Let me go ahead and undo there. I continue to go back and forth using the switch command, but a nice keyboard shortcut is if you hover, you'll notice that the X will switch you back and forth between the black and the white. So really this is the way that you can go back and add or remove. All right. And I want to add some of his hair back in a little bit. And as I'm doing that, I'm creating this selection. But keep in mind that the brush depends on the hardness and the softness. And the hardness at 0 means it's a very soft brush. It's going to automatically have some feathering and some semi-transparency built into it. And that's one of the nice things about these quick masks is it's really easy to select with transparency built in. And I can just go ahead and clean up some of these areas here. I'm using my space bar to pan through. And if it didn't quite get what I want, I can always go and refine it. Also, one things that we can do is, actually this looks pretty good, but we could, as we're needing to, we can resize the brush to get some better details. So for example here, it's pretty good, but maybe I'm getting a little bit too much in that area. So I'm going to go and switch using the X to switch to black. And then I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller so that I can hide that corner area. And then switch back. Whoops. Try that again. Press X to switch back, and it can be kind of a nice methodical exercise. There's something kind of mesmerizing about it. So who needs solitaire when you got this product? Anyway, but you could go through and you just use your space bar to space through, using your X to switch back and forth between the black. And if you get to some places where it's hard to tell, you got to just use your discretion and kind of think about what's going to be the best for that particular shape, like his shoes right here. It's a little tricky to tell. And maybe if I zoomed in and put a little extra more attention into that, I could make some determinations about what I really wanted. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and Control 0 to fit back to screen, and I can just press the letter Q, or I could click on that quick selection, and there's my selection that I have. And now if I move this into another picture, I'm bringing it in, and I had a chance to clean up some of the areas around his shirt and around his arm, his hand, that I didn't have before. Let's go back in here. Now, you can really spend a lot of time on a selection, and there's some nice shortcuts in Photoshop, but sometimes when it's a particular selection, you might be spending 15, 20 minutes on that selection. And so one of the things that you can do is save it, and if we go here to my select, down to the bottom, save selection, and I'm choosing what I want to save it to, and maybe even where I want to save it to, and what's going to be the name of the channel. Okay, and I'll call this boy, and I'll just call it boy version 1 because I might do another one, and I'll click on OK. Now what that does is it creates a channel. It's called an alpha channel, and it adds as a selection that I can get to later. So the quick mask is temporary, and as soon as I deselect, it's gone, and you can see when you go into your you go back and forth with your quick mask, there's nothing selected, so it's not really anything I can work on. But if I go to my channels, I can actually access that and even clean it up. It makes it even easier to see that information. I'm still using my paintbrush tools to refine it, so I could use that paintbrush to kind of clean up, soften up some of those edges around here, cleaning up that selection. This particular one too, we had used the refine edge, so we had actually done some cleanup on the hair and such, and so there's a little bit of fragmentation, maybe on purpose, but you can see how you're able to go in there and kind of clean up that selection using the alpha channel. I'm going to go back to the composite channel so you can see all the colors, and if I go back to select, we had done the save selection. Well, now we have load selection, and I can load the boy. All right, if I had multiple options in there, I could actually pick that up, load it in. The other option I could do where load selection is, instead of loading that selection, I could load it as an invert selection automatically, and then perhaps make some changes to it. Actually, let's change that. Let's do this one here, and then make some changes to it depending on what happens to be selected. There you go. And so you can use the quick selection, or the quick mask rather, to really refine that selection and have some details and spend some time getting it the way you like it. And then you can save it as an alpha channel that actually will get saved with the Photoshop file so that you'll be able to load it at a later date.